Millions of people around the world have taken to the streets to mark International Workers' Day, demanding better rights and employment conditions. The event dates back to the 1880s when labour movements in many countries were fighting for the right to form unions, earn overtime and limit workdays to 8 hours. On average, people now work half as many hours each week as they did back then. But income disparities are widespread. According to Capgemini's World Wealth Report, incomes for the world's richest rose by 20% last year, while workers' wages grew less than 2%. Well, in France, Yellow Vest protesters have been rallying for 6 months over rising taxes and stagnating incomes. They joined May Day demonstrations across the country, including in Paris, where the rallies turned violent. Elena Casas was there and sent us this report.
Traditional unions here in France have been struggling to stay relevant since the beginning of the Yellow Vest demonstrations in November. Now they have a clear message they want to pass to President Macron. They want him to reverse plans to cut 120,000 public sector jobs and put more money into public services like schools and hospitals. They're also concerned about the spending power of people on low incomes. Of course, those worries have much in common with the aims of the Yellow Vest movement. But the unions are concerned that message could be overshadowed by violence.
Those people should have been with us when Macron passed labour laws last year. We in the CGT union have already organised lots of demonstrations. We started to alert people and they did nothing. So it's a bit vexing that the government is taking some action now when we were demonstrating before. If all of these people had joined us then, we'd have had more strength.
These announcements from Macron, scrapping taxes he raised himself, don't count as a step forward at all. In public services, he keeps cutting jobs when he says, I won't close schools and hospitals. He closes classes and services. It's the same thing.
There are also concerns about the economic impact of the protests. All the shops here along the march's route have been instructed to close by police over safety concerns, and added to the fact that many were forced to close several Saturdays in a row in November and December because of the Yellow Vests, means that particularly small businesses are now concerned about the impact of the ongoing protests on their bottom line.
And TRT World's editor-at-large, Quaker Peters, joins me now from Paris. Hi, Craig. We know that many people in previous years have turned out for May Day rallies across France, but they turned particularly ugly this year. How much of that was made worse by Yellow Vest protesters?
Well, I wouldn't call it particularly ugly. I'd say particularly troublesome. No French riot or demonstration ends without a few cars being burned. And if you want to see a riot in France, go look at the footage from 1968. The problem here is not the Yellow Vest, but as the government says, it's the so-called Black Bloc, which is somewhere between maybe 1,000 and 4,000 anarchists who infiltrate the Yellow Vest marches and cause mayhem and havoc. And this May Day, about between 1,000 and 2,000 of them, the Interior Ministry says, came from outside of France. So it's troublesome.
As we know, May Day really does shine a spotlight on working conditions around the globe. Yellow Vest protesters this year used the opportunity to, I guess, highlight their gripes about conditions. Do they have a point? Are French workers currently being squeezed?
It's not only French workers, Oscar, it's also the middle class. They're arguably dollar for dollar, or euro for euro, being squeezed more. A lot of the Yellow Vest demands are actually quite interesting. For instance, they want referendums that would allow the public to rid the country of mayors or MPs who they don't like. They want a reimposition of the wealth tax. And their most interesting one, which a lot of people think has some mileage here, is they want to lower the value-added tax, which is at about 20%. Because once you slap a VAT on the public, it's double taxation. You're getting taxed on your income and what you spend, what you have left over on.
As we know, President Emmanuel Macron did try to appease the yellow vest concerns last week when he announced a series of reforms, including lower taxes and aims to raise pensions. How much of that has appeased their grievances?
It really hasn't appeased the grievances of the lumpen yellow vest movement and many people in France, I should say, particularly outside of Paris, in the provinces, on the farms, where money is tight. And Macron came through with no specifics to actually say, look, at the end of the year, you're going to have this much more money in your pocket. That's what everyone in France is waiting to hear from Macron. Show me the money. How much more am I going to have at the end of the year? And he hasn't done that yet.
So how soon are we likely to see some of these reforms that he's proposed? We've already got some costings. Some estimates put his announcement costing around $16 billion for the French government. When can we see these measures in place?
I don't think you're going to see any of them actually take any traction until December at the earliest, probably January of 2020.
Interesting. Okay. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, the latest World Wealth Study shows that fewer millionaires are now leaving France. Why are the rich staying put all of a sudden?
Well, according to the study, French millionaires are 4 times less likely to flee France under Macron. That might also be because maybe there aren't that many millionaires left. 12,000 left in 2016, 5,000 in 2017, and 3,000 in 2018. Look, the wealth tax here, Macron shelving the wealth tax was a smart idea because the wealth tax was artificially low. If you had 1.2 million or so dollars in the bank or real estate to that value, you were being taxed on that. And in the modern economy, 1.2 million in savings is not a lot of money for a middle-class household. It certainly is for a blue-collar household in many parts of the world, but millionaires as such, at least between the $1 and $2 million level, are by no means members of the so-called 1%. In fact, they're far from it. Now, the money that has left France, where the money has gone, millionaires globally, China, Russia, and India are the top 3 departure countries, and the money is landing in Australia, the United States, and Canada. And interestingly enough, on the list of where the money's going, number 11 is Greece. So they're benefiting from these economic high taxes around the world. People are investing, moving themselves, moving their capital to Greece.
Interesting. Okay, Quaker Peters in Paris, thanks as always.